It was a rainy Tuesday when I found the American dream face down in the gutter. It wasn't a pretty sight. The neon signs flickered above, casting long shadows over a scene that looked less like an accident and more like a professional hit. The pockets were turned inside out empty. The pension was missing, stolen long ago. And that white picket fence, the one they promised you in all those glossy brochures from the 1950s, was splintered into 1,000 pieces of unpayable debt. You know the feeling, don't you? It starts the moment the alarm screams. You wake up every morning, put on your uniform, and drag yourself to a job that demands your soul for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And at the end of the month, you sit at your kitchen table and stare at your bank account like it's a crime scene photo. You look at the tiny, empty piggy bank that represents your savings. You wonder where it all went. You look at the rent check. That single piece of paper now eats 60% of your paycheck. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when housing was an expense, not a burden. Now it's a hungry beast. Then you look at the grocery bill. It looks more like a ransom note than a receipt for food. Eggs, milk, bread, the basics of life have become luxury items, silently draining whatever cash you manage to save. You walk past a real estate office and see the price of a starter home hitting $500,000. Meanwhile, your hourly wage has barely moved since the dial-up internet era. The ladder to the middle class hasn't just been pulled up. It's been smashed. The media, the press down at City Hall, they like to play dumb. They call it market adjustments. They call it inflationary pressure. They look you in the eye and tell you that you're just not working hard enough. I don't buy it. I never bought it. This was a hit. A calculated, methodical extraction of wealth from the bottom 90%, transferred directly to the vaults of the top 1%. Let's look at the victim profile. Born around 1945. Back then, a single factory worker with just a high school diploma could buy a house, a new car, support a spouse and 3 kids, and still save for a comfortable retirement. But look at the corpse now. Today, take 2 college-educated professionals working full-time. Even with 2 incomes, they can barely afford a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. They have 6-figure student loan debt that hangs around their necks like a concrete block. They're deferring marriage, deferring kids, deferring life. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford the cover charge for adulthood. The milestones of life have become luxury purchases. I pulled out my notebook and started checking the timeline. From 1948 to about 1970, the economic laws of gravity held true. The lines on the chart moved together like lovers holding hands. When productivity rose, wages rose. But then I saw the severance. The scar tissue on the data. Right there in the early 70s. The lines split apart violently. Productivity kept climbing, we became the most efficient workers in history, but wages flatlined. That gap between the 2 lines, that's not just empty space on a graph. That's the crime scene. That is trillions of dollars, trillions stolen from your pockets over the last 50 years. Someone siphoned the gas out of the tank while the car was moving. The engine kept running, the car kept moving forward, but the fuel, the value was being drained away into someone else's tank. I looked up at the skyscrapers piercing the smog. The lights were on in the penthouses. They were having a party up there. Champagne, caviar, record-breaking stock buybacks. But down here in the street, it's a depression. The pundits keep shouting, nobody wants to work anymore. That's the alibi. That's the smokescreen. People are working harder than ever. They're working 2 jobs, 3 gigs just to make ends meet. I needed to find the weapon. I started digging through the cold case files. I looked at the 2008 housing crash. I looked at the dot-com bubble. Just a symptom. I kept following the blood trail back. And then I found it. The calendar on the wall. The date circled in red ink. August 15, 1971. The Nixon shock. This is where the trail leads. This is where the investigation gets dangerous. I sat down in the interrogation room. Across the table sat the prime suspect. Not a person but a year. A moment in time that refused to crack. 1971. Let's go over it again, I said. August 15th. Sunday evening. President Nixon goes on television and interrupts Bonanza to tell the world he's temporarily suspending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. This is the smoking gun. Before that moment, the dollar was a promise. It was a receipt for a specific amount of gold sitting in a vault. It had mass. It had weight. It had discipline. But on that day, they cut the anchor chain. They severed the link between money and reality. The dollar became unmoored, drifting into a sea of infinite supply. The dollar went from being a store of value to being fiat. That's a fancy Latin word that essentially means because I said so. The money in your pocket stopped being an asset and started being a ghost. Explain this, I pointed to the graph again. Up until 1971, the system was fair. Productivity up, wages up. But right here, right when the gold standard died, the line snaps. Where did the money go? Well, I asked the silence. If the worker generated the value, but the worker didn't get the money. Who took it? The productivity line went to the moon, but the paycheck stayed on the ground. The suspect stayed silent, but the evidence screamed the answer. The money went to the asset holders. It went to the people closest to the money printer. The system was rewired to reward ownership, not work. It's called the Cantillon effect. Sounds like a cheap wine, but it's actually a sophisticated mechanism of robbing the poor to feed the rich. It's the hidden tax that no one voted for. Here is how the con works. When the Federal Reserve prints $1 trillion, that money doesn't magically appear in everyone's bank account. No, it goes to the big banks first. It goes to the hedge funds. By the time that new money trickles down to you in the form of your stagnant paycheck, the prices of everything have already gone up. The rich got the money when it was valuable. You got it after it was diluted. Think of your savings like a glass of whiskey. You work hard for that whiskey. Then the government walks in with a bucket of water, printed money, and pours it into your glass. You still have the same amount of liquid, but it's watered down swill. I turned my attention to the other suspects in the lineup. Corporate greed, I sneered. Stand up. The media loves to blame this guy. And sure, he's ugly. But a shark is just an animal. A shark doesn't destroy the ecosystem unless someone pours blood in the water. The corporations didn't change in 1971. What changed was the water. The easy money policy turned the economy into a feeding frenzy. Why build a better factory when you can just borrow cheap money, buy back your own stock, and pump up the price? Why innovate when financial engineering is more profitable than actually making things? In 1970, a median home cost about $24,000. A median income was about $10,000. A house cost roughly 2.5 times your annual salary. Today, it's 8, 10, or 20 times. And that is why you, the average Gen Z worker, are competing for a starter home against a private equity firm from Wall Street. You're bringing a butter knife to a nuclear war. You never stood a chance. Houses aren't homes anymore. They're safety deposit boxes for the wealthy. Because the money is broken, people need a place to hide their wealth so it doesn't melt away. They pour it into real estate. The avocado toast theory. Garbage. It's mathematical nonsense used to gaslight a generation into thinking their poverty is a character flaw. The lazy generation theory. Disproven by the productivity charts. The interrogation was over. The pieces fit. The silent depression isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. The system is designed to siphon wealth from the people who work for money to the people who print money. I walked out of the precinct and into the rain. It was coming down hard now, washing the grime off the city streets, but nothing could wash away the stain of what I'd found in those files. The verdict is in. And it's not the one you wanted to hear. In a fair world, there would be justice. But this isn't a fair world. It's a rigged casino. Here is the cold, hard truth. No one is coming to save you. The cavalry isn't coming. The politicians aren't coming. The police work for the bank. The government isn't going to fix this. They can't fix this. They are trapped in a debt spiral of their own making. If they stop printing money, the whole house of cards collapses. So they have only one move left: kick the can down the road. Print more money. Create more inflation. Delay the inevitable until it goes off a cliff. The soft landing they talk about on the news. It's a myth. It's a bedtime story to keep you sleeping while they raid the fridge. So where does that leave you? You have two choices. You can curl up in the fetal position, complain on Twitter, and let the inflation tide drown you. Rule number 1: cash is trash. Get this through your head. Saving in fiat currency is a guaranteed loss. The money in your savings account is like an ice cube sitting on the sidewalk in July. Every day you leave it there, it gets smaller. They are taxing you silently through inflation. You need to convert your labor into something that can't be printed. Stocks, gold, Bitcoin, real estate, a business. I don't care what it is, as long as the Federal Reserve chairman can't hit a button and make a trillion more of it. Rule number 2, debt is a weapon. For your parents, debt was a shame. For the wealthy, debt is a tool. In an inflationary environment, debt gets cheaper over time. The rich climb with it. The poor drown in it. But be careful. This is a chainsaw. It can build a house or it can cut your leg off. Use it to buy assets that pay you. Never use it to buy liabilities that drain you. Rule number 3, you are the asset. Get this clear. They can inflate the currency. They can crash the market. But they cannot print your skills. The boomers played the game on easy mode. They rode an escalator up. You are playing on hard mode. You are climbing a grease-covered wall. It's unfair, but it's the reality. Understanding 1971 isn't about being angry at the past. It's about decoding the present. Once you see the matrix, you stop chasing the paper and you start chasing the value. The case is closed. The economic war is happening right now, whether you enlisted or not. The only question is, are you going to be the victim in the chalk outline? Or are you going to be the one who makes it out of this city alive? Keep your eyes open, kid. It's a dark world out there. And the only person looking out for your wallet is you.